Hi, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. Today's story is about what happens when you overhear the one sentence that changes your entire life, and realize you were never the person they truly wanted. She didn't know I was standing there. That's what keeps me up at night. Not the betrayal. Not the lies. Just the fact that she said it when she thought no one was listening. It was a Wednesday. Rainy. Mundane. The kind of day that disappears from memory unless it rips your world apart. I had left work early because my boss was out sick, and we'd wrapped up inventory ahead of schedule. No one was expecting me home for at least another hour. I walked into the house quietly. Not on purpose. I just didn't want to slam the door and wake the dog. But I froze in the hallway. Her voice, my wife's voice, was floating down from the upstairs landing. Calm. Unhurried. Confessional. She was on the phone, probably pacing like she always did when she talked to her sister. No, I'm serious, Ellie. I don't love him. I don't think I ever did. He was just someone I could depend on. A safe place to land. That's it. My mouth went dry. I stood there like a ghost in my own home, listening to the woman I kissed goodbye that morning casually erase every memory we'd built together with a few careless words. My feet felt like they weighed 100 pounds, and yet I couldn't move. Couldn't blink. Couldn't breathe. He worships me, Ellie. It's exhausting. I smile, and he thinks it's love. He makes soup when I'm quiet and buys flowers like that fixes anything. Honestly, I feel like I'm drowning in his affection. I almost dropped my keys. Not because of anger, but because of shame. I had made her soup the night before. Chicken noodle. From scratch. She said it was nice. I remember watching her take a spoonful and scroll on her phone while I tried not to grin like a fool. I thought I was being a good husband. Thought I was helping. Turns out, I was suffocating her with kindness. That night, I didn't say anything. I couldn't. We watched a movie. She fell asleep on the couch. I stared at her for 2 hours, wondering how long she'd been pretending. The next morning, I stood in the shower until the water ran cold. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped the center out of me. I wanted to ask her why. But I was too afraid of what the answer would be. So I did nothing. For 2 weeks. I played my role like a coward. Smiled when I needed to. Kissed her goodnight like I hadn't heard her say I was nothing but a life raft she wanted to escape from. But every day chipped away at something inside me. Until I broke. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even raise my voice. I just left. And that's where the story should have ended. But 3 years later, 3 full years after the divorce, that sentence came back to haunt me in a way I never saw coming. And if you think that's where this story ends, you're dead wrong. I didn't leave with fireworks or righteous fury. No dramatic suitcase slam or final speech on betrayal. That's not how this happened. When I left, I quietly shut the door behind me, sat in my car, and stared at my trembling hands until the windshield blurred from the rain and my own breath fogging the glass. I couldn't even bring myself to cry. I just felt erased. Like I had been someone's imaginary friend who had finally outlived his usefulness. For a few weeks, I stayed at an extended stay hotel on the edge of town, the kind where the light bulbs flicker and the vending machine always jams. I called out sick from work more than I should have. Every time I tried to sleep, her voice echoed, "He worships me." It's exhausting. I would have rather heard her say she hated me. At least hate is something. At least hate means you once cared. I didn't tell anyone the truth, not my coworkers, not my 2 close friends, not even my mom, who kept texting, "How's Corinne?" like I was dodging a landmine. I just told everyone we were taking space. Space. What a stupid, Bloodless word for something that felt like someone had taken a vacuum hose to my lungs and sucked out all the air. The divorce itself happened fast. Corinne didn't fight me on it. In fact, she barely blinked. She agreed to everything, didn't want a dime, didn't request anything. It was like she'd been waiting for this moment, like she'd already walked out emotionally 6 months before I ever touched the doorknob. And you know what the worst part is? Even then, even after everything, I still wanted her to stop me. To look me in the eye and say, I didn't mean it. But she didn't. She smiled gently at the mediator like she was closing an old book she no longer wanted to reread. After the papers were signed, I asked her one question. Just one. I asked, was there someone else? Not with anger, just exhaustion. She didn't hesitate. No. I didn't need someone else, Byron. I just needed to feel like a person again. A person. As if being loved by me had somehow made her disappear. The months that followed were colorless. I went to work, answered emails, made polite conversation about new inventory software like I wasn't screaming internally. I deleted her number, but I still knew it by heart. Her toothbrush sat in my drawer for longer than I care to admit. I'd open it sometimes just to look at it and close it again like a coward. I wasn't healing. I was stalling. Paralyzed. Haunted by a ghost who wasn't even dead, just indifferent. I tried dating eventually. Everyone said I needed to get back out there. I downloaded the apps, went on 2 awkward dinners, one of which ended with the woman saying, "You're not really over her, are you?" I laughed and lied. Of course I was. Totally over her. Couldn't you tell? But I wasn't. And that's why what happened next shattered me in a way I didn't expect. 3 years passed. And then one afternoon, out of nowhere, I got a message request on Facebook. It was from her sister. Ellie. The same Ellie who'd been on the other end of that devastating phone call. I hadn't heard her name in forever. Her message was short. Casual. Almost too casual. Hey Byron. I know this is random, but do you have a minute? I think you should know something. That one sentence made my stomach drop like a broken elevator. I stared at the message for hours before I replied. Sure. I didn't know it yet, but clicking send would drag me into something far deeper, and darker, than I ever imagined. Corinne's betrayal. That was just the first crack. What Ellie revealed next would make me question everything I thought I understood about the past, and about myself. And the scariest part? I think Corinne knew this day was coming. When I agreed to talk to Ellie, I wasn't expecting much. Maybe she just felt guilty. Maybe she wanted to apologize for not telling me what she knew back then. Or maybe she missed the drama and wanted to stir up old ghosts. I didn't know. But I couldn't stop myself from responding. The second I clicked send, my palms were already sweaty. She replied fast. Too fast. Like she'd been waiting for me to say yes. Can we talk over the phone? It's a bit weird to text. That sentence didn't sit right with me. What was so weird it couldn't be typed? Still, I gave her my number. 30 minutes later, I was pacing in my living room, phone pressed to my ear, stomach in knots, trying to convince myself this wouldn't end in another kind of heartbreak. She didn't even bother with small talk. Byron, I've been holding this for a while, she said. And I feel terrible for not telling you sooner. I should have spoken up back then. But Corinne made me promise. I stopped pacing. Promise what? I asked, though I already felt a pit opening in my gut. Ellie sighed. That I'd never tell you what was really going on during your marriage. That phone call you overheard, it wasn't the first time she said something like that. It wasn't even the worst. I gripped the back of my couch like the floor was tilting. What do you mean, wasn't the worst? She was seeing someone, Byron. 4 months. She swore it wasn't physical, that it was just emotional, but I knew she was lying. She used to vent to me all the time. She told me she felt like she was living two lives. That she couldn't breathe when she was around you, but that she didn't want to be alone. So she found someone who made her feel alive again, whatever that means. I sat down. Hard. My knees couldn't take it. You knew. And you didn't say anything. I wanted to. God, I did. But she was my sister, and she told me if I ruined things, she'd cut me off for good. She said she just needed time to figure herself out. I thought she was going to break it off and be honest with you. She wasn't, I said. She never was. I know. And I'm sorry. I thought you deserved to know now. Especially since, she stopped herself. Since what? Another pause. She tried to contact me last week, Ellie said. Corinne. Out of the blue. Said she's been thinking about the past and, about you. That sentence lit a fuse in my chest. No. No, no, no. She doesn't get to do that. She doesn't get to come back now, after 3 years, and start thinking about me. I'm not saying she's planning anything, Ellie said. I just thought you should know. You weren't crazy, Byron. She lied to you. You weren't imagining things. And I hate that you had to find out the way you did. I sat there long after the call ended, just staring at the wall like it might crack open and give me answers. So Corinne had lied. Not just about her feelings, but about everything. About being faithful. About needing space. About why she let me go so easily. And the worst part? I felt relief. Like a horrible weight had shifted off my back. Not because she betrayed me, but because I hadn't been wrong. I hadn't been paranoid. I wasn't some oversensitive fool who just imagined his wife falling out of love. It was real. All of it. And now, apparently, she was thinking about me. The very idea made my skin crawl. I went to bed that night with a storm in my chest. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't rest. I just kept thinking, what does she want now? Why now? What changed? Because people like Corinne don't reflect for no reason. They come back when they want something. And I had a horrible feeling this wasn't over. 3 days passed after that call with Ellie. 3 days of me checking my phone more than I wanted to admit. I hated myself for it. I didn't want Corinne to reach out. I didn't want to hear her voice again. And yet, I couldn't stop waiting for the moment it might happen. Because if she truly had something to say, something meaningful, I needed to know what the hell it was, and why now. On the 4th day, it happened. Not through a text. Not even a call. But a letter. A physical, handwritten letter in a cream-colored envelope that showed up in my mailbox with no return address. Just my name. Byron, in that familiar slanted script that used to cover our fridge on sticky notes that said things like, pick up oat milk, or, love you, sleepyhead. It felt like a punch to the chest. I stood at my door for 10 minutes before opening it. I was scared. Not of her, but of what her words might pull back into me. Because I had buried so much just to survive after she left, and now she was trying to dig it up with ink and paper. The letter started like a confession. Not an apology, no, she was too careful for that, but a slow, meandering explanation that sounded more like a journal entry than a message to an ex-husband. She said she'd been through a phase of awakening, which already made my eyes roll, and that therapy had helped her unearth her inner patterns. It was full of the same emotionally detached self-help jargon she used to plaster all over Instagram. But then she said something that froze me cold. I know you overheard me that day, Byron. I always knew. I saw your car in the driveway before the call ended. I just didn't know how to face you after that. That line shattered something. Because for years, I told myself maybe she didn't know I heard. Maybe if I'd confronted her, things would have turned out differently. But no. She knew. She heard me come home. Saw the car. And still acted like everything was fine. Still let me sleep beside her that night like a dog waiting for scraps of affection. She chose silence. She chose cowardice. The next part of the letter confused me even more. She wrote about the past coming full circle and how, sometimes what we break is the only thing that can put us back together. It read like one of those cryptic quotes printed on driftwood in overpriced home decor stores. Then came the real gut punch. There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago. I didn't want to write it here. If you're willing to hear it, meet me next Thursday at 2 p.m. at Sable Ridge Park, by the East Fountain. If you don't come, I'll understand. But I think you deserve to know the whole story. What the hell was the whole story? I stared at the letter for hours, turning it over in my hands like it might change shape if I just looked at it long enough. Part of me wanted to burn it. Another part wanted to run screaming in the opposite direction. But a third part, the part of me that had lived too long with questions, needed answers. And that's how I found myself driving to Sable Ridge Park the following Thursday, hands clammy against the steering wheel, heart pounding like I was walking into a trap I built myself. I arrived 15 minutes early. The fountain was already running, spraying mist into the sunlight like it was mocking how peaceful everything looked. I sat on a bench and waited. Every passing minute tightened a knot in my stomach. And then I saw her. Corinne. Standing at the edge of the path like she didn't quite belong to the same world as me anymore. Her hair was shorter now, curled tighter. She looked thinner. Older. But not in a bad way, more like someone who'd gone through something and come out the other side with pieces rearranged. She walked up slowly, carrying a folded envelope in one hand and a look I couldn't read in the other. No smile. No tears. Just calm, unnerving silence. And the first thing she said to me, after 3 years of nothing, was, "Byron, before I tell you anything, I need you to promise you won't interrupt." I didn't speak. I just nodded. Because I could already feel the ground shifting beneath me. And when she handed me that envelope, what I read inside made my skin crawl. It wasn't a love letter. It wasn't a plea for closure. It was a revelation, one that tied back to the night I overheard her. One that exposed a hidden truth so twisted and surreal, I actually laughed out loud in shock. I didn't open it right away. I held that stupid envelope like it might explode in my hands. Corinne just stood there, eyes fixed on me, arms crossed like she was trying to keep herself from falling apart. We hadn't spoken in 3 years. I'd rehearsed 1,000 speeches in my head if this moment ever happened, things I'd say to cut her down, humiliate her, make her regret everything. But I said none of them. All I could manage was a weak, "What is this?" She didn't answer the question directly. Just said, "I should have told you a long time ago. But I didn't know how, and I didn't think it would matter after you left. I thought you'd be better off not knowing." Knowing what? I snapped. Her expression didn't change. "Just read it. Please. And if you never want to see me again after this, I'll understand." Then she turned around and walked away. She didn't look back. I sat there another 10 minutes, just staring at the envelope. It felt heavy for something so thin. My fingers trembled as I peeled it open. Inside were 2 pages, handwritten like the letter she'd sent me, but the tone was different. This wasn't rehearsed or poetic. It was raw. Almost panicked. The first page started like this. "Byron. If you're reading this, then I guess I finally found the courage to stop hiding. What I said on the phone that day, yes, I meant it. At the time. But it wasn't the full truth. It was a shield. An ugly, pathetic one. Because I was scared of what I had already done, and what I knew was coming. That sentence knocked the air out of me. What I knew was coming. I read faster. You see, I wasn't just cheating emotionally. I wasn't even just cheating physically. I was involved in something bigger, something I couldn't get out of without hurting you. And instead of coming clean, I convinced myself that keeping you in the dark was protection. That you didn't need to carry the burden of what I'd done. The rest of the page detailed what could only be described as a full-blown scam. Corinne and a man she met through a wellness retreat, someone named Grayson, had concocted this manipulative, healing mentorship business. Except it wasn't really a business. It was a cash siphon. They sold fabricated programs online using fake testimonials, photoshopped progress pics, and forged client stories. They'd convince people to buy into these personal growth packages, some costing thousands. It was spiritual fraud at its most polished. And the kicker? My name, my credit, was used to secure a business account. I flipped to the second page, hands shaking. I signed forms in your name. I memorized your social. I used your good credit to start the whole thing. Grayson promised we'd be rich and gone before anyone noticed. But when things started collapsing, I panicked. I knew the fallout was coming. I knew legal trouble was possible. That's why I said what I said on the phone. I wanted you to walk away from me. I wanted you to hate me enough that I could detach before it all came crashing down. You weren't a beige sweater. You were my shield. You were the only good thing I had left, and I ruined you to protect myself. I stopped reading. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even feel my fingers anymore. I'd spent years thinking I was boring. Unlovable. A placeholder. I thought she discarded me because I didn't excite her. But in reality, I had been a buffer. A safety net. She'd made me into her alibi while she played some twisted spiritual con game behind my back. That last line still haunts me. You deserved the truth, Byron. I just couldn't bear to be the one who gave it to you. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember opening the door or sitting down. But I do remember tearing that letter into tiny pieces and then, just minutes later, frantically taping it back together because I needed proof that I hadn't imagined it. She used me. Not just emotionally. Financially. Legally. And if any of what she said was true, there was a very real chance that whatever she started with that Grayson guy hadn't fully collapsed. That maybe the consequences were still out there, waiting to land. And I had no idea what she wanted from me now. But I was about to find out. Because the next morning, I got a call from an unknown number, and the voice on the other end wasn't hers. It was a man. Calm. Cold. He only said one sentence before hanging up. You really should have destroyed that envelope, Byron. The phone call lasted less than 5 seconds, but it rattled me more than anything Corinne ever said. You really should have destroyed that envelope, Byron. No name. No number. Just that voice. Deep. Controlled. Emotionless. I stood frozen in my living room, the phone still pressed to my ear long after the line went dead. It felt like someone had reached into my house and cracked the air open around me. I tried to convince myself it was a prank. That someone was messing with me. But the way he said my name, slow, deliberate, it wasn't random. It wasn't spam. Whoever he was, he knew what was in that letter. And that meant this thing wasn't over. I went into full panic mode. My thoughts scrambled like glass under a boot. What exactly had Corinne dragged me into? She said the scam fell apart. That it was over. But if that was true, why was someone watching me? Why was my name still part of this? I didn't call her. I didn't want her voice in my ear, trying to spin more damage control. Instead, I sat down and tried to trace every document I'd ever signed while we were married. Bank accounts. Tax filings. That one LLC form she asked me to look over real quick. Had I actually signed it? Or had she forged it? My memory blurred. And then I remembered something even worse. Corinne had access to my digital signature. I'd given it to her during the pandemic when everything went virtual. She said it was easier to handle bills and paperwork. I trusted her. Of course I did. We were married. I was stupid. I started checking my credit reports. Nothing immediately alarming, at least nothing recent, but there were traces of something old and unfinished. A business loan inquiry from 2 years ago, listed under a now-defunct entity called Celestial Integration LLC. The address listed wasn't hers. It wasn't mine either. But my name was there. And the cosigner? Grayson Wells. I googled the name, thinking maybe I'd find a yoga influencer or some harmless self-help guru with too many hashtags. Instead, what I found made my stomach turn cold. Grayson Wells wasn't a coach. He wasn't a mentor. He wasn't even licensed in anything remotely professional. He was a known fraudster, real name Greer Wallace. Multiple aliases. Multiple states. Arrest records in Colorado and Nevada. One sealed case in Arizona. His trail was a series of polished websites, hollow businesses, and suddenly vanished bank accounts. And now my name was tied to him. I couldn't think. Couldn't sit still. I started pacing so hard I nearly put a dent in the floor. Was I already under investigation? Were there charges I didn't know about? Would they believe I was a victim, or would I be seen as an accomplice? I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the envelope, the ripped pages taped together on the table, wondering how my life had turned into a slow-motion collapse that no one else could see. By morning, I had made a decision. I was going to meet with someone, anyone, who could explain what I was involved in. I wasn't going to wait for the next cryptic phone call or mystery letter. I needed to take control, even if it was already too late. I called Ellie. It took a few rings, but she picked up. Byron? I need to see you, I said. In person. Now. She hesitated. What happened? She lied to both of us. About everything. And I think we're both in danger. I met her an hour later in the back corner of a quiet diner just outside of town. She looked pale, more nervous than I'd ever seen her. She didn't even order coffee. When I showed her the letter, her hands trembled as she read it. I knew about Grayson, she whispered, but not this. Not your name. I thought it was just some flirty, new age nonsense. I didn't know she was doing this. I leaned in. Ellie, I need to know something. The truth. Was Grayson ever around while we were still married? Did you ever see him with her while I was at work or out of town? She looked away. My heart dropped. I didn't know what they were doing, she said softly. But yeah. He came by a few times. I assumed it was business stuff. She said he was helping her build a course. Did she ever mention anything about bank forms? Business accounts? Loans? No, Ellie said. But I remember her being obsessed with getting out of Indiana. She kept talking about Costa Rica. Said she wanted to disappear. Disappear. That word echoed like a bomb inside my chest. Whatever Corinne and Grayson had started wasn't just fraud. It was an escape plan. And it looked like something, or someone, had stopped them before they could finish it. But that still left one horrifying question. If Grayson was gone, then who made that phone call? The fear had shifted. It was no longer about Corinne's betrayal, or even Grayson's lies, it had evolved into something more primal, something I couldn't name yet. A quiet but unshakable paranoia. I started checking my locks twice at night. Started glancing in my rearview mirror longer than necessary. Every unknown number made my chest tighten. I'd never lived like this before. But suddenly, I felt like prey, like someone was a few steps ahead of me, pulling the strings while I was still figuring out there were strings at all. A week passed with no more contact. No new letters. No calls. Nothing from Corinne. Nothing from the mystery man. For a moment, I let myself believe maybe it was over. Maybe the threat had passed and I could crawl out of this nightmare with my sanity intact. Then, late one Friday night, I found an envelope under my windshield wiper. No stamp. No postmark. Just my name. Again. I looked around the parking lot. It was empty. Silent. But somehow, I felt like I'd just walked into a room someone had left seconds before I arrived. I got in the car, locked the doors, and opened it under the dome light. This one wasn't from Corinne. There was no greeting. No explanation. Just a single sentence scrawled in rough, uneven handwriting on a wrinkled page. "You're not looking in the right direction." That was it. No signature. No initials. Just that one cryptic sentence. I stared at it for a long time, trying to read between the lines. Was it a warning? A clue? A threat? I couldn't take it anymore. I called Corinne. She didn't answer. I called again. And again. The third time, she picked up. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. Shaken. "Byron, why are you calling me?" "I need answers," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Someone's watching me. Someone knows. They left a note. Under my car. And I know you know who it is." Silence. Then she whispered, "If you got a note, Byron, it's already too late to walk away." "What does that mean?" She hesitated. Grayson was never the real threat. I felt my blood go cold. Then who was? "I didn't want you involved," she said, voice cracking. "I thought if you hated me, if you left me, you'd be safe. That's why I said what I said on the phone to Ellie. I wanted you to hate me. To leave before it touched you." "Touched me?" "Corinne, what is this?" She was crying now. Not loudly, but I could hear it in the way her breath hitched. There was someone behind Grayson. A partner. Someone silent. He never gave me a name, never showed his face. We called him the Quiet. He funded the whole thing. Gave us direction. It was always his idea to use your identity. He said it would give us time. Shield us. My chest was a drum. And now he thinks I'm a threat. If he knows you read the letter, yes. But why now? Why 3 years later? Because Grayson disappeared. And when he did, the Quiet lost his leverage. So now, he's cleaning house. That sentence landed like a punch. I was never just collateral. I was a loose end. I slammed my phone down and sat in my car for what felt like hours, the same phrase echoing in my skull, "You're not looking in the right direction." The next morning, I pulled every piece of the puzzle back out, letters, credit reports, documents, scribbled notes, and went to war with the timeline. I combed every transaction. Cross-checked names. Looked up emails, VPN bounces, even back-end domain registry info for that celestial integration website. And then, something clicked. An IP address linked to the old coaching website Corinne ran didn't trace back to Nevada. Or Colorado. It pointed to someone in my own city. Someone in a quiet, leafy neighborhood I used to drive through on the way to work every morning. The account had been accessed regularly from one particular address for months after I left Corinne, long after she claimed she'd cut ties with everything. It was a house registered to an unremarkable name, Leonard Pratt. I wouldn't have thought anything of it, until I looked up Leonard's business filings and found something that made my hands go numb. Leonard Pratt was the registered agent for 3 other shell companies, all dissolved, all with integration healing, or alignment in the name. I found him on social media. Retired. No photos. Private profile. But I recognized the background in one of his banner images. The East Fountain at Sable Ridge Park. He had been there. Watching us. The envelope hadn't just been a warning. It had been a message. He was closer than I realized. And if he knew where I'd been, who I'd met, what I'd read, then I wasn't dealing with someone cleaning up old crimes. I was dealing with someone who never stopped watching to begin with. I should have been terrified walking up to Leonard Pratt's door. But honestly, by that point, I was too exhausted to feel much of anything. After everything Corinne had done, after the years I spent buried in doubt, shame, and fog, I didn't want revenge. I didn't want drama. I just wanted truth. Even if it scared me. Even if it confirmed every terrible suspicion I'd carried since that cursed phone call 3 years ago. The house was deceptively normal. 2-story colonial, tidy lawn, wind chimes tapping in the breeze. There was a bird feeder on the porch and a cracked concrete walkway that told me he'd lived here a long time. I knocked once. No answer. Knocked again. Nothing. Then I turned to leave, and the door creaked open behind me. He stood in the shadows. Older than I expected. Gray hair, but alert eyes. Still. Like stone. "You're Byron," he said. Not a question. A fact. "You're the one they called the Quiet," I replied. He didn't deny it. We didn't sit down. There were no threats. No dramatic monologue. Just silence. Thick and humming. "I didn't come to fight," I said. "I just need you to know, I know everything now. I know what Corinne and Grayson did. I know how deep it went. And if anything happens to me or Ellie, I have backups. Documents. Names. This all gets released." He studied me for a moment, then gave a single nod. "You were never supposed to get hurt," he said. "Then maybe next time, don't ruin someone's life to stay hidden." I walked away. Just like that. And for the first time in years, I felt lighter. Not safe, not yet, but lighter. Because sometimes the only thing scarier than facing your past, is never knowing what it truly was. A few weeks later, Corinne messaged me one final time. She'd left the country. Said she was starting over somewhere warm. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. I just didn't have anything left to give her. Ellie and I stayed in touch. We're not close, exactly, but we share something unspoken now. She told me she's thinking about going public with her story. I told her I'd support her if she did. As for me, I'm okay. I got a new job in a quieter town. A dog, actually. His name's Clementine. Don't ask, it was a weird shelter moment. He's loud and needy and sheds like a nightmare, but somehow, he fills the house in a way it hasn't felt filled in years. I still think about that version of me who stood behind the door, hearing the sentence that unraveled my life, "I don't love him." That version of me was broken. Hollow. But this version, the one telling you this story now, he's still standing. He's still here. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Thanks for watching today's story on Reddit Confessions. If you made it to the end, drop a comment below and tell us, what would you have done if you found that envelope? Would you have opened it? Burned it? Ignored it? We want to hear your take. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss another twisted, true-to-life tale from Reddit Confessions. See you in the next one.